We
That looks
have
good.
the incredible Kirk Whalum in here,
Hello there. How are you? Happy Nam.
and we are going to have a little talk with him about his career and the way into the music industry, and probably a whole lot of stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Sure. Should I kick us off, Kirk?
Yes, sir.
So one of the things, Kirk, that when I prepared for this talk, I was really curious to know about is, and I'm a novice in this, unlike you guys. I don't play an instrument. I sing terribly. I would make everyone leave. So I'm really interested to know, in your mind, what good sounds like.
What good sounds
Well,
like?
yeah.
Wow, that's a really good question. So, what does good sound like? To me, what's really good and excellent and beautiful is the most authentic you that you can present. Like, it's just got to be you. That's the most important thing, and that, this is overwhelming. You come here, and I'm a saxophone player, and I hear the first 10 saxophone players I hear, just they're trying out instruments, they all play better than me, right? And that's not even to mention my mentors and my heroes and the people, I love and I'm wanting to take a selfie with and all of that. That's not even mentioning them. These are just folks who are, from the neighborhood, as it were. But at the end of the day, that's really not what it's all about. It's about you sharing the most intimate corners of who you are, like just going deep into your heart and to your life and sharing that with as many people as you can, even if that's just a couple of people, and to me that's really important, that don't be overwhelmed by all the great musicians and all the great art that's out there. You have to look in the mirror and see the most important person. It's fun. It's going to sound a little kind of arrogant, but you have to look in the mirror and say, "This is the most important person that I can present to the world." I have to love that person. I have to nurture that person's gift, like you. The most important thing is what's deep inside of you. So that's really what's good. And the more I try to play like this person or be like that person, the further I get away from what people actually want. They want what's authentic. Now, there are going to be some people who could care less about who that is. Like there goes some people who will walk right by. They don't care. But there are others who will immediately identify with the authentic presentation of you. Who are you? And they'll hear something and they're like, wow, man, you know what? I relate to that. I relate to what you're saying, even though sometimes it's not so much what you're saying or playing. It's a feeling. It's something like some way I'm connecting with you. So you gotta just be you. That's the most important thing. Everybody out here, that's the most important thing that any of us can do.
So what I hear you saying, at least how I understand it, is that you can be incredibly talented, but if you don't put a part of yourself in the music, if you don't give something of your own, well, then you can have all the talent in the world,
Yeah.
and you'll sound okay. Yeah. But the goodness, where it's really starting to feel good, that's when you're opening up and, almost daring to share something.
That's right. That's a good way of putting it, of daring to be you. That's like, maybe that's the next, Dynaudio, program, daring to be you. But because it is kind of risky, right? Because you look out there and you see what people are buying. You look out there and you see what's popular. You look out there and you see, what you like and what you admire. Oh man, I want to be that guy, and I want to be that lady. And you're like, man, that's nice. So just be influenced and inspired by them, but still you have to be you. But I think there's a way of doing that that's not arrogant and that's not super sort of self-possessed. There's a way of doing that honors all the great people who went before you, for instance. There's a way of doing that, for instance, as an American. Man, I am so done with Americans who think that everybody needs to come here because, we got the mother lode of creativity. It's like, I'm done with that. The music of the world has now manifest in such a way. It was always there, but now it's manifest and is accessible to us in such a way that it has humbled America. Well, many Americans have been humbled, not all, but many American musicians have been humbled by all the great music that's being made all over the world. And now we get to share in such a way that now you make my music better. And maybe you can hear something in my music that makes your music better, as opposed to people thinking America is the shit. It's like, no, man. It's like America is just one of many countries where great music is being made. So, man, I'm just so excited. I'm grateful for what Dynaudio is doing in the sense of sort of backing out of the way, like presenting these forums where people can connect across borders, across cultures, across, styles of music, across languages, all these things. Like the speakers are there, but they're not, the speaker's never been the thing, right? The speakers, it depends on what you're playing in it, right? The speaker is there to faithfully represent and to faithfully present something that's important, something as of value, something that reaches people. So yeah, that's important, man.
Can I ask you, Kirk, when you said it's so important that you be yourself, to finding your own goodness, or how you could pronounce it, the thing is, it might be abstract, but where would you be if you had to work with the internet? If you imagine that you started over and you had to work the Instagram and Twitter and the Facebooks.
Yeah. That's an excellent question, man. I mean, because I'm 60, right? So when I first started, I was 12. And so really you're concerned. There is a sort of network, right? But that network is all right there in your neighborhood, right? And so yes, there is competition. Yes, there are things that you hear. You say, well, I can play better than him, or her, or whatever. And then there are others who say, oh, my goodness, I definitely can't play that good. And then there's all these things that are operating in that community. There is good that you can do. You can share. You can help people, right? But now just blow that up, and the internet makes that a global thing. The global neighborhood, man. And so to me, again, that when I found that out, it was before the internet, by the way. I went over and I studied in Paris, and I found out, like, hey, wait a minute, there's all this other music, all this other culture, and that was it. I could no longer just be an American, right? I mean, I am an American, but I'm also a global citizen. And so I began to appreciate and to learn about the cultures of all these other places, of course, in Europe, but man, in Africa and in Southeast Asia and in Japan and all these places. So for me, the internet just makes those things readily accessible. And so now, man, the music that's coming out, first of all, the thing that I celebrate, I think more than any, obviously, the African diaspora, not so much the people, but the art itself that has now made its way into all these other cultures. That I celebrate maybe more than anything. But next to that, I celebrate Arabic and Muslim art and music. Again, I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian, but I am now being able to, because of the internet, be exposed to all this art that has been hidden underneath. In fact, the fact that music and that art has been oppressed and suppressed because of the politics, that makes it that much more precious and that much more refined and that much more impactful. So that's, for me personally, that's the thing that really makes me happy right now.
But I know that with your, and again, my French is bad, so excuse me if I pronounce it incorrectly. Your Humanité project, you've been able to travel around the world and meet a lot of the people who aren't necessarily known to all of us, but who are incredibly talented at what they do. Can you talk a little bit about those experiences?
Absolutely. So Humanité, it just means humanity. And, my desire was to connect with artists in these other countries and these other cultures. And you can't get to all of them, but at least I was able to record on Humanité with artists from South Africa, 2 artists from there, from Indonesia, from Japan, France, Kenya. Did I say South Africa? I'm believing, London, England, France, Nigeria, And man, it's blown my mind to experience that thing, the essence of it. In Hebrew, we say hesed, right? The thing that connects us that has to do with empathy, right? The thing about jazz music, and again, what I play is jazz, but it's also gospel, it's R&B, it's whatever. But the thing that connects us, man, is empathy. Like I can walk into a room and all of a sudden now I'm with two guys from Denmark. But I happen to know that you have a baby girl, 1.5. Okay, so there was a time when I had a baby girl who was a 1.5. Okay, so now she's 33. But I can empathize with where you are as a parent. You're out here, you're working, you're doing your thing, but a big part of you is wanting to make sure that she experiences life on a level that includes all of these things that you are experiencing, right? So for me, the music that impacts people is music that has empathy woven into the core of it. I can't express to you how disappointed I am in our government right now, that we instead of tearing down walls, we want to build walls, man. That's so completely antithetical to this experience right here, man. Right here, we could show them a thing or two. We musicians could show them a thing or two about what does it mean to live, man. It means tearing down walls. Every single day we're trying to tear down walls. I want to get with the brother and the sister playing the salsa, and I want to learn what's up underneath that. What is it that makes that happen? I want to learn about polka. I want to learn what is it that makes that happen. We're tearing down walls, and what they want to do is build walls, man. It's crazy, man. It's insane. It's insane, but we get that in music, and it's hard for us not to feel arrogant about that. But man, I just hope that what we have here, and you look around, you see all the colors of the rainbow and all ages and everything, the empathy that we have, man, is what's it. And some would say it's the shit. It is what's up, right? So that's what we gotta show them how to do it, man.
One of the things that earlier we were talking a little bit about social media and how that impacts the music that we make. And I think that if you talk to a lot of people about, well, what has social media meant for the youth nowadays, it's maybe not that we relate it to something that imparts empathy on us. How do you go about with the people that you meet, the youth that you come across, who are being raised in a culture that really places a premium on social media and a lot of followers and likes? How do you try and impart that empathy that is just so crucial, not just to music, but being a human?
Yeah. Wow, man, I wish I knew the answer to that. I mean, I'm just saying amen to the question, and I'm hoping that together, me and my age group and you and yours, me from my culture, you from yours, that we can figure that out so that we can inspire young people to value each other, to value empathy towards each other more than, being accepted. Now, let me say this. I do understand that being accepted is huge. And what the internet does is it provides for us an avenue to kind of be accepted. But also it's kind of a perverted acceptance. You're accepted by virtue of how you look, and that type of thing. So we have to try to, I think there's a lot of good going on. Let me just say that on the internet, social media, there is a lot of good. There is a lot of what I would consider to be positive energy that has to do with young people connecting. And I will give this props to the young people. They have much more of a commitment to each other in general than the people in my age group. I'm actually very, very impressed with just the connections, being committed into these relationships. And again, sometimes it's not the relationships that some of my peers acknowledge, but it's a beautiful thing to see. So I'm just hoping music is the oil that makes that work better. So yeah, man, let's make more music. That's what's important.
Definitely. So Kirk, I want to change gears just a little bit and talk, because we're here with the Unheard, Dynaudio Unheard touring recording studio, right? Trying to give artists that are unheard, haven't made it yet, a chance to reach a broader audience.
Yeah.
But also talk a little bit about some tips that might help them progress in their career. And one of the things is how important it is to trust your gut.
Yeah.
Because I think that just from knowing Marky and the chats I've had with him, you know, that you do as a musician come into a lot of positions, whether it's a label or a manager or another stakeholder in you and your career, who's going to try and shape you in a certain direction.
Yeah.
How do you know when to just buckle up and get in for the ride and say, I'm going to hold on to my own. I'm going to trust this down here.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's kind of another way of saying what we've been talking about, like, you know, really presenting your best, most authentic you. And that's hard because, again, there's so much out there. There's so many things that you know, we aspire to. You know, there's so many things that, oh, man, that's cool. This is cool. So I want to do that. Why? Because it's cool, you know. But that having been said, man, you have to, you said it. You have to trust you. And so I, as a man who loves God, I would say that we're trusting what God has placed inside of us. And so in a sense, we're kind of allowing God to speak through us. So we could say that made of flesh, there's only so much that we can do. But when we're connected with the divine, that there's something supernatural that happens through us, that it doesn't just impress people, it impacts people. It impacts them profoundly. And that is in every one of us, in Mark, it's in you, it's in me, it's in all of us, that's something that's very unique to you. It's just specific to you, but at the same time, it's connected with the divine. It's connected with all this beauty and power. You can't get there unless you're trusting yourself that this is what's important. You know, I got to be me, you know.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I know that we're running a bit out of time because this has been a really interesting conversation. Do you have anything you want to know?
Yeah, Kirk, I know that you've been around the block more than once.
Yes, a couple of times.
And I know that you work with a lot of younger artists.
Yes.
But when you try to get the goodness, the pureness out of a young artist, you don't have to give me all of your tricks. But if you can just elaborate a little bit of how you do that.
Well, you know, I will say this, that I don't produce a lot of records. I have a friend who's a great producer. His name is John Stoddard. And hi, John. And, you know, so there would be more John Stoddard question. But I'll say that for me, it's more identifying something in someone. Let's say a young artist, for instance, in Indonesia, there's a young artist I heard named Grace Sahertian. And I heard her music, and I knew right away, first, that she wasn't singing anything that I'd ever heard. She wasn't singing pop songs. She was singing her own music. And she was doing it in such a way I could tell that she was not... she didn't have the kind of instrument, you know, like the voice where she was singing all these, what am I trying to say, sophisticated lines and stuff. No, it was just the sound of her voice that had so much conviction. She was just believing in who she was and singing her songs, man. And I tried not to listen. I was having a conversation and we were having lunch, but I kept being drawn back to it, right? I was drawn to this little girl, you know, I call her a little girl, I'm 60, right? She was 24. I'm hearing this thing like, wow, what is that, man? So finally I just put my fork down and I went over there and I just stood there to listen to her. And to me, like, that's an example. Like, she didn't know I was listening. She couldn't have cared less. She was doing her own thing. And that's what got me. And I sure enough I said, ma'am, my name is Kirk Whalum. She went, you are? And I realized then she knew who I was. But I'm like, so what? But I'm like, man, I would love to make some music with you. So fast forward now, we've done this record together. I played on her record, which is out now and it's doing great. She lives in Indonesia. She's on my new record, which is coming out in September, which is called Humanité. And so to me, that was one of those connections that proved the point that, man, the most powerful thing you can put out there is the most vulnerable, the most convicted representation of you, who you already are, not who you're trying to be, not who you're trying to emulate. It's just got to be you. Now, you are going to develop, you're going to evolve. That's all good. It's not going to be the same you 10 years from now, right? That's all good. But man, it's still going to be the essence of who you are that impacts and convicts people and convinces them, man, I got to know this music.
I think that's a pretty good place to stop.
Kirk, it was a pleasure having you.
Yeah,
here.
definitely.
Now, I have to say that my Dynaudio 1, what's it called? I just call it the 1, but what's it called? The portable.
Music one, yeah.
My Music 1, right? So that sits in the kitchen, right? So I wake up every morning and I turn it on and I listen to my podcast and I listen to some worship music and man, it's my speaker. It's like this one little thing, but I've got all the spectrum, right? I have represented in this one little speaker all my highs and lows in the beautiful middle, right? But then when I go over to my studio, I have the Dynaudio, like the studio monitors, right? But before I go there, I turn on my 7s, man. And, I'm practicing with a band and I'm listening to these speakers come and hit me, man. And they inspire me, man. So, I mean, I'm saying you guys may not even realize how dope those 7s are, man. Oh my God. Anyway, rock on, guys.
Yeah.
Rock on, Dynaudio.
Thank you so much, Kirk, it was a real pleasure.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.